This is the Brew Party Podcast. Episode 73 is here. I am back once again. Your host that definitely does know the most, Andy Hopper, checking in for episode 73. Going to make sure I have the right number on the promo graphic I make. Last week, episode 72, featuring Alec Walk. I want to thank him once again for joining us last week to talk about Mac Jones and Cam Newton, and Cam Newton no longer on the Patriots roster. Holy shit, we did not see that coming. We were talking last week. Check out that episode if you haven't already. Well, I guess not much need to now since Cam's not on the roster, but still, check it out. Anyway, in that episode, I was working on it late at night. I made a promo graphic for it that said episode 71, not 72. Didn't realize that until that graphic was already put in the video. That was exported, and I wasn't going to wait another 3 hours to export it, 2 hours or whatever it is to upload it to YouTube. So just going to make sure I get my numbers right this time. Episode 73 of the Brew Party is live, featuring our friend of the program from the Bear Down Girl podcast. It is the one and only Katelynne Lener. She makes her return to the party. It is a bear party this week, folks. It's the Bear Party, not the Brew Party. We are talking everything Chicago Bears, Justin Fields and Andy Dalton. Obviously, we're talking about the defense, new defensive coordinator Sean Desai. What are we going to get from Robert Quinn this year? What's the secondary going to look like behind Jalen Johnson and Eddie Jackson? What the receivers? Who the hell is going to catch the ball besides Darnell Mooney and Allen Robinson? The tight ends, the offensive line, the holes there. Jason Peters, Tevin Jenkins, Larry Borum, all that good stuff. Matt Nagy, Bill Lazor. Anything Bears, it's in this conversation. We talk about the 53-man roster and the cuts, the surprises, anybody we weren't expecting to see go. It's a great episode. Always love having Katelynne on the show. I'm super glad to get Katelynne back. It's been a while. I think the last time we had her on was the draft show, but she was actually, I think, the first female guest ever on the Brew Party. So shout out. She is a true OG of the party. I'm so happy that it's football season. We can get her back. We talk Bears, man. Like I said, we give our record predictions for the year. We talk about how we think this division is going to go, who really gives this team the best chance to win, Matt Nagy's play calling. What else, man? Preseason grades, stuff, just awesome stuff. If you're a Bears fan, if you're a football fan, check out this episode. You're going to want to stay tuned. Also, if you're a Bears fan or a football fan, check out Bear Down Girl. Awesome content. She does a weekly preview and a weekly recap of each of the Bears games. So that's 2 episodes, double dose of Katelynne, and all of her hot takes each week. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, Podbean, all that good stuff. Follow her on Twitter as well, at Bear Down Girl Pod. If you follow her personal Twitter, there's a link to that as well. I think it's at Katelynne Lener. She live tweets all the games, and it is pretty great. So I get her thoughts on everything Bears. We dive into it with the one and only Katelynne Lener. Super excited to have her back on the show. Super excited to have you guys listening, watching, however you're consuming this. I thank you so much. Appreciate you taking your time out of your day to consume my content. If you are interested in consuming any more of it, make sure you find us on social media. We are at the Brew Party, and we we are at the Brew Party on Twitter and Instagram. We are at the Brew Party Podcast on Facebook. You can find us on YouTube, youtube.com/the Brew Party. Please do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications so you know when we are going live. We might bring the live streams back this football season for Maloney's Moneyline. I will leave that up to the fans. Maybe we'll put a poll out there, see what we want to do. I guess we got to see what kind of time schedules work. But anytime we post a new video, make sure you have those notifications on so you know, and you can be one of the first ones to see whatever stupid came out of my mouth. Or whatever stupid thing came out of my mouth. See, that's how dumb I am. I can't even speak correctly. So episode 73 is here. Bear Down with Katelynne Lener. The Bear Party. Make sure you check out our merch. If you're interested in supporting the show at all, there's a couple ways you could do that. So you could find our merch. Just go to bonfire.com/brand-new-brew-party-merch. Look at how fast I can do that shit. Brand-new-brew-party- God damn it. I always got to mess something up. -merch. That's too many words. I know. Just go to our Twitter page. It's twitter.com/thebrewparty. Our pinned tweet is the link to buy merch Also, if you're following us on Instagram, you can find it there. There is a link in our bio. If you don't want to get merch, but you're still interested in supporting the show, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/thebrewparty, and you can buy us a brew. A little $5 donation. We will dedicate the next a beer on our next episode to you. If you are interested, help support the show. And I really, really appreciate it. Can't believe we've really gotten this far. 73 episodes is crazy. That is just way too many hours of me. And you guys have all been here for it. And I cannot thank you enough. Let's keep this growing. I'm trying to get it as big as possible so I don't have to go to my day job anymore. That is the dream. But we're going to keep on chugging. We're going to keep on going. We're going to keep on brewing. So before we get you into this interview with Katelynne Lener from the Bear Down Girl podcast, I got a couple things I want to talk to you about. So Maloney's Moneyline is coming back, ladies and gentlemen. Week 1 of the NFL season. Me, Maloney, back giving out picks, giving out winners this year. Only winners, no losers. Wink. And it is going to be a blast. I'm so excited to have Ryan back on the mic. We need to set an over-under for amount of words he is going to say total this year. Luke Wilson on Twitter said 7.5. Ryan said, no, you better take the over. He's going to steal the show this year. So, fuck, I hope so. My voice is getting strained from carrying it for too long, Ryan. And then check me out on this week's episode of Hitting for the Cycle. Just finished up a nice little recording with my buddy Hank and Dictor. We all know Hank, host of Hitting for the Cycle, one of the co-hosts of Big Blue Avenue for Review and Preview Sports. He had me on to talk about the Cardinals, specifically Yadier Molina announcing his retirement at the end of next year. So he signed a 1-year, $10 million extension with the Cardinals to stay through 2022. After that, he will be retiring, so he gets his little retirement tour. So Hank had me on to talk about that. Awesome stuff. And and just the Cardinals where they're at this year. So they just won game 1 of their doubleheader on Wednesday. We will see how the rest of September goes. They're currently 68-63, game and a half out of the second wildcard spot in the NL. Uphill battle, injuries all year. But tune into that episode of Hitting for the Cycle. Going to be so much fun when everybody gets to see it. It was a great time. Thanks to Hank for letting me bitch and moan and complain about my St. Louis Cardinals, which that is going to be a gray area here. We're going to have Bears fans watching this going, what the fuck? But there also is, like, I'm a Cardinals fan, but I'm also a Bears fan. I know it's weird. I'm in central Illinois. Shit happens, okay? I was born an hour and a half from St. Louis, but I never got into the Rams. Always loved Bears football. So, yeah, I can like both. Leave me alone. Before we get into this interview, once again, I got to tell you about this Illini game from last Saturday. Week 0, baby. The University of Illinois hosted Nebraska for the very first college football game of the year on last Saturday, and it was just glorious. So it was hot as fuck. It was like 90 degrees. We went, we tailgated, we had tickets to the game. We were in the sun, just absolutely baking. I'm probably still like lobster red. I don't know if you can really tell, but as if I'm not always red anyways, but yeah, get sunburnt, but Illinois wins 30-22. They start off the Brett Bielema era the right way, and by that, I mean their first points of the year were a safety. Hell yeah. Blake Hayes is a fucking monster. He's the punter, averaged 45.5 yards per punt. His first punt of the year, he pinned it like at the 1-yard line, just perfect punt. And then, like, I think his second one, he caused the safety, which he is just elite at affecting field position, changing field position for the opposing team. And it just felt amazing to be back, not only in a Illini game, but just like at a sporting event. That was the first sporting event I've been to in like over 2 years. And just being outside around people, college football, there's nothing like it. Especially when I'm yelling my fucking head off and letting these Nebraska fans hear it behind me because their tears are oh so sweet and they cannot take a joke. It was funny as shit, guys. I was anything Illinois did, I had a comment to make, and of course there's some old dude behind me going, we're just here to watch the game. We're just here to watch the game, which, okay, yeah, I get it. I wasn't being mean or anything, just having a good time. Did have a good conversation with a couple Nebraska fans behind me. There was no bad blood or anything, but it just felt amazing to win. I mean, the final score was closer than the game actually was. I think Illinois was up by 3 touchdowns at one point, and I don't know if they took their foot off the gas, but they just had a bad drive or whatever after going up by 3. No, you know what it was? Adrian Martinez, who actually he had an okay day. He did make quite a few mistakes, but if you were just look at the numbers, you wouldn't know he had a bad game. He did break off, I think, like an 80-yard touchdown run or something like that to respond after Illinois went up by 3 scores, which was pretty nice. So he finished the day 16 for 32, 232, and a touchdown through the air, plus 17 carries for 111 and a touchdown there. Irvin Jr. had 12 carries, 33 yards. So other than Martinez, man, like the Illinois defense held strong. It's amazing what you do if you're not running Lovie Smith's shitty Tampa 2 in college. It doesn't fucking work. They did have Martin on the outside, 6 catches, 103 yards, and a touchdown. That's all I got for the Nebraska side. On the Illinois side, because I got to get into this a little bit, Brandon Peters, the starter, I think he ends the game 3 for 4 with 35 yards. In the first quarter, he gets sacked, goes down real hard on his left shoulder, leaves the game, seen later with a sling. It is on his left shoulder, his non-throwing shoulder, so that makes you feel a little more optimistic. Brett Bielema did say at his press conference this week that they aren't ruling him out for Saturday's game against UTSA, but they aren't optimistic that he's going to play. So expect Artur Satowski, who came in and did a hell of a job on Saturday, 12 for 15, 124, 2 touchdowns. The Rutgers transfer, Rutgers legend Artur Satowski could be your new Illini starting quarterback. So he did have some help from Mike Epstein, 16 carries, 75 yards, and a touchdown. Reggie Love also added 12 carries and 45. Chase Brown, who was announced as the starter at running back, only 5 carries, 24 yards. You don't really know what happened there, if they were just kind of saving him because it was so goddamn hot outside, or what. Deuce Spann, who just converted to receiver from quarterback, made an insane 45-yard catch to set the Illini up at the 2-yard line to set up a touchdown. Isaiah Williams, have yourself a day, kid. Your first game at receiver, 6 catches, 41 yards, and a touchdown. He had a couple carries, I think, for like 13 yards. They are going to move him all around. They're going to put him in the slot and just let him make plays. Just get the ball in his hands and see what the kid can do. He is fun to watch. Luke Ford, they finally fucking threw the ball to Luke Ford. 3 catches for 30 yards and a touchdown. The tight end transfer from Georgia finally gets on the board for the Illini. Going to be awesome to see how Brett Bielema really attacks with Luke Ford, how he uses him in this offense. Tony Adams, the leader of the defense, a cornerback, 10 total tackles, had a great day. Brett Bielema said it. They're going to have to find some more depth at the offensive at the outside linebacker position, like their edge rushers. They need to get Carney, and they need to get the other guys a little bit more breathing room. They need some guys to step up there. But I mean, shit, man, there is not a lot to hate from this first game in Champaign of the Brett Bielema era. Anytime you can win your home opener, start off on the right foot, a Big Ten, a conference game. I think he was the first Illinois head coach to win his first Big Ten game since like 1988 or something like that. It's just something that doesn't happen around here in Champaign, man. So, I mean, that starts the season off with a bang. We have high hopes now. I mean, I shouldn't say now, but that game proves that, hey, we can hang with some of, and I don't know if I want to say big dogs in the Big Ten, because Nebraska under Scott Frost has just been an absolute dumpster fire. Honestly, Nebraska probably could have won this game if they would have stayed out of their own way. They did have an interception, but it's taken back by a roughing the passer call plus taunting. So that's 30 yards of field position for Illinois that they end up going to score on. Martinez, I think he threw a pick or a fumble or something, and like I said, they had the safety where they give the ball back to Illinois. This was a very winnable game for Nebraska, but man, I think the Big Ten West, we'll see what happens. Obviously, we still got to play, Wisconsin, Northwestern, Iowa, all those good guys, but great start to the Bielema era, and he just sounds like a college football coach. He sounds like a coach in the post-game press conferences. He just sounds like he knows what he's talking about. He's not like Lovey, where he feels like he's above everybody and was like, oh, I'm doing this job as a favor. I'm an NFL head coach. Well, get your fucking ass back to the NFL. Hope the Texans love you this year. Sorry, that was rude. I mean, I was never anti-Lovey till the end when he was just obviously mailing it in. But it is just refreshing to have somebody with the resume that Bielema does in college football leading this program, and just it feels like they're in the right direction. I know it's only been one game, and I'm sure I'll cuss them out and have a different opinion if they lose or look bad the rest of the year. But we will see this Saturday against Texas San Antonio, who was actually a pretty good mid-major team last year. I think they won like 9 games or something like that. So classic letdown spot for Illinois. We will hope and we will pray that they are a different team, and it feels like they are. Obviously, they still have some moving pieces. Not everything's done, but it's never done year one, game one of a coach's tenure. So we'll see. He's got a lot to work with. Hopefully that Sitowski coming in and balling out wasn't a fluke. I'd like to think if he did that against Nebraska, they can set it up where he'll be able to have success against UTSA. So I would also love to see Chase Brown get more carries. I don't mind Mike Epstein getting his done. 16 carries for 75 yards and a score, especially everything he's been through with this program. All the injuries and stuff that he's had to battle through. That's awesome. But I mean, Chase Brown has potential to be a legit NFL back, and maybe Mike Epstein's proven that he does too. So very interesting. We still have some guys I think that were held out, didn't really play. I know at the receiver position, Brian Hightower was out. Marquez Beeson is going to play receiver. He didn't play week 1. He is back for week 2. So there is a lot to like. Looking to get a good Illini guest on the show here in the next few weeks. So stay tuned for that. This is going on 17 minutes of my whole intro here. So let's get this out of here. Let's finally get you into this interview with the one and only Katelynne Lener from the Bear Down Girl podcast. I will just leave you with this. ILL, fuck Nebraska. Let's go. Bear Down, ILL, go Illini, go Bears, go Brew Party. This is the Brew Party podcast, episode number 73. Make sure you check us out wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, or on YouTube. youtube.com/The Brew Party. Make sure you subscribe, hit that notification button. Now, without further ado, let's get you into this interview with the one and only Katelynne Lener from the Bear Down Girl podcast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back once again, episode 73 of the Brew Party podcast, joined by a friend of the program, somebody we haven't seen since, I believe, the draft show a couple months ago. You know who it is. It is Katelynne Lener from the Bear Down Girl podcast. We are talking Chicago Bears today, ladies and gentlemen. I guess you could call this the Bear Party today. It's not the Brew Party. Katelynne, thank you so much for joining me. Super excited to get your thoughts on, everything, Fields, Andy Dalton, the defense, the offense, everything that's going on, the preseason so far. So, Katelynne, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty great. I'm pretty happy to be here. I can't wait to talk some Bears. Of course, I always have the takes.
Always have the takes. So, Katelynne is the host of the Bear Down Girl podcast. So, before we get into it, let's talk about Bear Down Girl, kind of what you got going on right now. What you were able to do this off season, or did you take a little bit of a break during the off season, or were you?
I don't take a break. I drop an episode every single week, so people can always expect to hear from me.
Absolutely. So where can they find you?
So I'm on iTunes, Podbean. So if you can download the Podbean app, you have Android, but I also have it's on Spotify as well. So if that might be an easier way for you to listen to podcasts, you can go there too. So it's switching up now that the regular season's starting. I'm no longer dropping episodes on Sundays. I'm actually dropping 2 episodes per week. Starting on September 10th, I'm going to preview week 1. So every Friday I'll drop a game preview episode, and then the following Tuesday I'll give a game recap. So get me twice a week now.
Let's go. So look out for those game previews and game recaps. A lot of useful information for Bears fans, for football fans. If you're going to be tuning in to watch the Bears on, Thursdays, Sundays, Mondays, whenever it is, week to week in the NFL. So thanks to Katelynne for joining us. Make sure you check her out. You can also follow her at Bear Down Girl Pod on Twitter. awesome Bears content there as well. She has a lot of great live tweets during the games, keeping those takes out there, ladies and gentlemen. So let's get some of those takes. I guess we got to start with the hottest one of the preseason for Chicago Bears fans and really NFL analysts, NFL fans around the country. It's Andy Dalton versus Justin Fields. So Andy Dalton has been named the Week 1 starter, despite pretty great performances, and I would say 2 of the 3 preseason games from Justin Fields, and just a hell of a lot of hype around this kid. So let's get your initial thoughts on this before I ask you any questions.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here. It's funny that everybody from Bears fans to just Bears analysts, Bears reporters, are just like NFL analysts in general. They're all thinking the same thing, yet Hallis Hall, they seem to be on another planet where they think Andy Dalton is QB1. And I don't know if Nagy's just being super stubborn. There's one approach where he's being super stubborn. He's like, oh, I gave Andy Dalton my word that he'd be the Week 1. We signed him to be the starter, so I can't go back my word. If he's going that route, that's just ridiculous. They're grown men. Like, if you can't handle rejection, then don't be in the NFL. Mm-hmm. That's the first thing. I'm on this. I've been talking about this theory on my podcast for weeks now, where Nagy, as I've gotten to know him, I know him to be someone who doesn't like to reveal anything. He's always kind of like gamesmanship. He doesn't want to give up any kind of information. And certain things stand out to me in preseason where I feel like, well, in preseason, they run a conservative offense, especially in the last preseason game. It felt like they weren't trying to really show how they're going to use Justin Fields. So that I'm watching those little things. I'm saying, he doesn't want to show, he doesn't want to put it on film for other teams to see, because at some point he's going to play Justin Fields and he doesn't want people to already know how he's going to utilize him in the offense. So that's my first tell. And I'm thinking also with Nagy, maybe this is all some kind of like trick he's playing on everybody. And I say it like jokingly, but I'm thinking, what if he's going to continue to say Andy Dalton's QB1 up until like the week of the game, and then he just completely shakes it up? Because some teams are saying already who their quarterback is, but you would think someone who's like doesn't want to reveal anything, he's super competitive. I'm thinking, what if maybe this is just me being hopeful that he's doesn't want to give the Rams ammo and he wants the Rams to game plan for Andy Dalton and think they're going to play Andy Dalton, and then all of a sudden he says Justin Fields. Now this is probably like not going to happen. I'm pretty sure 90% it's not going to happen. But in my heart of hearts, I want to believe it's going to happen. I'm thinking, like, is this some diabolical plan that Nagy's like, because there's like everybody's saying Justin Fields, the tape doesn't lie. What has Andy Dalton done in the preseason? He's done nothing. 3 and out. You don't have any of the starters playing, so why is even Andy Dalton out there? Right. He's not getting any kind of chemistry going on the field with A-Rob and Darnell Mooney. And it just, the whole preseason, the way he handles it in general, I don't understand it. And I just think maybe he's dug in a little bit. Maybe my little theory will come true, but I doubt it. But I just think it's just, it's so, like, you just see the little things that Justin Fields does. It's just different, where he can ad-lib and throw, that touchdown to Horsted, whereas like in the tightest of windows and only a handful of quarterbacks can attempt that throw and make it. And he just did it like it was nothing. Like, that's just something he's going to be doing. And Andy Dalton obviously can't do that. And then there's this theory about, okay, week 1, maybe they don't want Justin Fields to see Aaron Donald, which I think is a loser's mentality, because it's like eventually he's going to face all these defensive players. So all these thoughts are running through my head. I'm trying to process it. I still can't handle it.
Right. It's very tough, but you brought up a lot of good points, and especially that touchdown Fields threw to Jesper Horsted. Not only did he fit it into that tight window, but he did it on the run, like across his body. Like, Andy Dalton isn't making those throws this season. An interesting stat I saw from Runback Dave on Twitter. He's a good Bears follow if you are a Bears fan. Andy Dalton's passer rating when under pressure during the preseason was 50.3. Justin Fields' passer rating when under pressure this preseason was at a 111.6. So they're right there. That stat is telling about anybody that's making excuses saying, oh, well, the offensive line isn't ready to protect him. And yeah, sure, this offensive line isn't great. They're not going to be considered one of the top units in the NFL. But at the same time, I mean, Fields has got to get out there at some point, right? He's going to have to see what this pass rush, what elite defensive edge rushers and these nose tackles are like. And I don't know if just holding him out and letting him try and practice till you feel like your offensive line is okay enough to throw him out there is the right move. So in your opinion, which one of these two guys gives the Bears the best chance to win more football games this season, Andy Dalton or Justin Fields?
I would say Justin Fields, and a lot of reasons for what you're saying is his athleticism, certain things that Andy Dalton can't do. You think the offensive line is already bad enough, and Andy Dalton's not going to be able to escape pressure like Justin Fields can. So Andy Dalton's probably going to be getting hit a lot, sacked a lot, throwing interceptions. We saw throughout the preseason with Justin Fields how he's able to just get outside the pocket, make throws on the run, and he does it really accurately. So he's actually, it seems like he's better at throwing on the run when he's outside the pocket. So I feel like he can use his athleticism in terms of, extending plays with his legs, in terms of he could scramble or, just, still looking to throw and find somebody outside the pocket. Yeah. So he brings all these different elements where it's like, okay, you have a shaky offensive line. He can kind of like hide it a little bit with his athleticism.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree with you on that. I feel like Dalton, like throwing him behind this line will be like Nick Foles last year. Like he's just going to crumble. Like he can't move. I'm sorry. He's not Cincinnati Bengals 7 years ago, Andy Dalton. It's not the same. And I think a point you brought up earlier that I thought was hilarious was about them being grown men. They need to be able to take rejection. Like, why is Nagy taking so long? It's like, oh, well, we told him he was going to be the starter and we gave him $10 million for this year. Well, yeah, that was what, a month or two before Justin Fields was on the roster? Sorry, shit changes. This is the NFL, right?
Not for long.
So, I mean, I know you said in your heart of hearts you'd love this preseason to be just some whole ruse and he's going to change his mind. Realistically, do we see Justin Fields in the preseason, and what week do you think we will see him if we do? I know that's a tough question.
Man, if the first half in week one goes pretty rough for Andy Dalton, we know Matt Nagy can pull the plug real quick. So just like he did with Mitchell last year, it took like halftime of the third game. So that's kind of where I'm angling at. If they're still going to go headstrong with this Andy Dalton week one, he'll get a couple games and then Matt Nagy will realize that Justin Fields is a better option because he says he's going to do what's best for the Bears. And in my opinion, right now, Justin Fields is the best option for the Bears. I don't know why they haven't accepted that yet. But we know, I think Andy Dalton, at least one game. I'm not guaranteeing him a second game, which is funny because we're facing the Bengals, his old team. So it wouldn't be funny if he got benched before that game. But I don't know. I'm thinking the first couple games he'll play. And then I just don't see it going well for Andy Dalton. I really don't. And I don't want to root for the team to be bad or him to fail. But it's kind of like hard because it's like I want them to win. But then it's like I don't want them to be too good because I don't want to hold out Justin Fields. So it's kind of a weird position to be in. But I just see the writing on the wall, and I mean, week 3, I think that's where that's the game I'm circling.
Week 3, okay. I mean, I want to see him as soon as possible, and I mean, you and I both know as Bears fans how quickly the people in Chicago, I mean, at the games are going to let him hear it for Justin Fields. I mean, that first mistake that Dalton makes, it's going to be like, all right, let's throw the kid out there. If we look at some of Fields' preseason numbers, he completed 61% of his passes, so he was 30 for 49 for 276 yards and 3 touchdowns with no interceptions. 19 incompletions there. I would love to know how many of those were drops.
I think a lot of them were.
I think a lot of them. The majority of those definitely were drops. So 96.98 passer rating. That's pretty damn good for a rookie. He also added 92 yards and a touchdown on the ground. I mean, what more does the kid have to do to prove that he's ready to play? I don't understand. Well, I guess I don't really know what else we could say. So let's move on to another part of this team that we've kind of talked about a little bit, the offensive line. because they're going to be the ones protecting whoever it is back there. And I guess I'm going to jump back very quickly to agree with what you said. It is a very tough position because you don't want to root for your starting quarterback to be shitty because we want the team to win, right? I said it. I don't care who's out there. I just want to win. And I don't necessarily think this Bears team should be feared by the rest of the league as, a Super Bowl contender, because I still think we've got a few pieces to go. Like, we have some shit to figure out before we get to that level, but they can be a more than respectable football team. So if we go to the offensive line, we add Jason Peters, 39 years old, former Super Bowl champion. You love it. You love the experience he brings. But now we're hearing that our 5th-round pick, Larry Borum out of Missouri, is challenging him for the starting left tackle spot. Do you think that is a good thing or a bad thing for this offensive line?
I have some questions about Peters because of his injury history as of late. And of course, age is a factor. So, once injuries start piling up, I don't even know if we might be forced to put the rookie in there. Mm-hmm. And so that's some growing pains there, obviously, adjusting to the NFL. So I think either way, we're going to be kind of screwed. No offense to the offensive line. But I think the tackle positions are some weak spots right now. And Jermaine Ifedi, I'm not really trusting in as well. I didn't trust him last year. I was surprised they re-signed him. So both tackle positions, I don't know if Peters can stay healthy, if they have to bring out the rookie and what he's going to look like. And Jermaine, I just can't trust him either. So, man, I don't know. I don't know right now.
It doesn't help that Tevin Jenkins is going to miss the start of the year. Obviously, he's got a lot of potential, and they really liked him. They trade up to get him in the second round, who a lot of people said was a first-round talent. Just some questions about maybe his injury history in college. And, of course, that is what happens in camp. You also have guys like Sam Mustipher is going to be around. Alex Bars has been a guy that's been around for a few years who they've been able to move around, but I don't really know if he is really I don't think he's a starting offensive line caliber. Cody Whitehair is back. I think Charles Leno is hurt. But yeah, there's just
not Charles Leno, but we have James Daniels.
James Daniels. That's what I meant. James Daniels is hurt. Fuck. So there's pieces there, but they just don't really know kind of how they all fit together. And that is going to be one of the Bears' Achilles heels all year, especially with this running game, because not only do they have to block for the quarterback, they have to make space for whether it be David Montgomery, whether it be Tariq Cohen when he gets healthy, or Damian Williams, who I think was a sneaky great pickup for us. And then how much does Khalil Herbert get time here? So a lot of concerns. If we move out to the receivers real quick, 2 guys you mentioned earlier, we have Mooney and we have A-Rob, who are solid 1-2. Mooney's got to really prove it this year, make his step up, make his leap. Who else do you feel needs to step up? Like, who's going to be that number 3 in this offense? Like, where do we go?
I don't even know, because they just house with the wide receivers. What's Marquise? Is that
Marquise Goodwin? Goodwin?
Godwin.
Is it Goodwin? Yeah, I think it's Goodwin. I think it's Marquise
Goodwin.
Goodwin.
Like, the name slipped my brain.
Chris Godwin plays for the Bucks. It's Marquise Goodwin. Yeah. Yes.
I don't know what he's more just like a deep threat option. I don't know.
Guy, yeah. So
Rodney Adams, I guess they're gonna keep him because he showed out in preseason. I think like they might run like a tight end heavy offense because they have so many. I mean, ironically, tight end used to be the weakest spot for them. Now they have like so many tight ends they could go to. Jesse James, Justin Fields has such an amazing connection with Jesse James. Like, and we don't get Justin Fields week 1, so that sucks. But I don't know. It feels like they're going to maybe rely on some of their tight ends because I don't know what other receivers are going to go to because there's not a lot of depth. And it just seems like A-Rob, Mooney, and everybody else. I don't know what these are going to do.
So they bring in Marquise Goodwin. They also brought in Damiere Byrd over from New England. Like you said, Rodney Adams had a really, really nice preseason. He ended up making the team over Javon Wims, over Riley Ridley, 2 guys that got cut. They just cut Daz Newsome, the 6th round pick out of North Carolina at receiver. But you mentioned the tight ends. A guy that Bears fans really wanted to see get more touches last year was Cole Komet.
Yeah.
Do you think they're actually going to be able to work him into the offense this year?
I really hope so. I don't know what it was last year. It always seems like with rookies in general with the Bears, I don't know if it's a Nagy thing because it went before Nagy, that they kind of hold them back in their rookie seasons. It's almost like a redshirt year where they barely use them. So I don't know, maybe he's just coming along a little bit slower because Darnell Mooney, he seemed to pick up things quickly and was like a major part of the offense. So I guess it just depends on the person. So I guess it's going to be dependent on how much Cole has developed in his game as a tight end. I'm hopeful because since we drafted him so high, I had high praise for him. So I think he is an athlete who can make some plays and be a nice pass catcher for us. Yeah. So I hope that's always been my goal for the Bears is to them have a really solid tight end in this offense, because you look at the offense that Matt Nagy came from in Kansas City with Travis Kelce being like a huge highlight of their offense. And I think in this kind of offense he runs, you really need a good pass catching tight end. So I kind of need Cole Komet to kind of step up his game.
Right. I mean, somebody has to on the offense. I mean, because Allen Robinson is going to be there. Like I've said it before. Everybody said it before. He's never had a great quarterback as long as he's been in the NFL. He hasn't been dealt a great hand. Starts with Blake Bortles. Obviously, he comes over with Mitch. And you and I obviously have our relationship with Mitch that we can get into in just a little bit. And then now he's got Andy Dalton, who nice guy, but maybe not the best quarterback. He played with Nick Foles last year. Nice guy, Super Bowl MVP, but past their prime. So he's going to get touches. What I want to see is Fields to Robinson and Fields to Mooney. Because I think it would just be so fun. But there are so many questions there. I'm curious to see how many times Nagy's going to run the ball, because how much he loved getting Montgomery his 20-plus touches last year. And, if that's what it takes for the Bears to be successful this year, then I guess I'm all for it. Run the damn ball, as they like to say. So, let's talk about it. We're going to talk about Mitch. That was our second preseason game. Just absolutely came in and embarrassed us, a 41-15 final score. I know it's the preseason, so it doesn't really matter. But, it's the day after Mitchell's birthday. His first time officially back in Chicago. He gets to start. I don't know about you, but when he was laughing, I couldn't. Or when he was like shredding us, I just couldn't help but laugh and kind of smile, just because it was kind of just like a big up yours to us for everything. And Brian Daboll proved that he is a better play caller than Matt Nagy, in my opinion. They used tempo. They were just used Trubisky how you're supposed to. And I know it's just a 1-game sample size in the preseason. It doesn't mean anything, but it just felt good as somebody who rooted for Mitch for the past X amount of years to see him kind of come here and play well. Yeah,
it's hard for me because once a player leaves for another team, it's hard for me to root for them. So right. I'm I wish him well, but I think maybe it got overhyped a little bit because
it did. It did.
He's playing a vanilla defense. The defense wasn't really hard. And I think they're also running a very simple offense for him. A lot of slants, certain things. It's that in the regular season when defenses are actually trying, they'll easily pick up on that, and he wouldn't have a game like that. So I can look at it nostalgically and say, okay, good for you, Mitch, coming back, a little revenge game. And it just gave fuel to the people who hate on Nagy. See, look, it's Nagy. It's no, it's still Mitchell. He was the problem. Yeah. But it was funny. But he's still the backup quarterback. So the NFL pretty much told us what they think of him. So
best backup in the league.
Yeah.
You don't have to pretend to agree with me. It's okay.
I wish Mitchell well, but I'm kind of I think over the years I
I get you. It was time. It was time to move on. It didn't work. It doesn't always work. And now that we
have a new thing in Justin Fields, I'm okay.
We're definitely. Did you see the picture of them on Twitter of them shaking hands before the game?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, that was funny because I saw one caption that was like, "Hey man, I'm Mitch," and then it was like Justin's like, "I know who the fuck you are." It's like,
Oh,
come on, dude.
I like quoted that picture and said it was like Mitchell telling Justin, "Oh, if things get bad, you can turn off the TVs in Hallis Hall." And he's like, "Bro, I'm not you."
Yeah, no. Exactly. But that was the thing I always admired about Mitch is just like he never said anything bad about anybody. He kept his head up. He kept, we don't have to make this make me suck it off Mitch Trubisky for this episode. Anyways, I sometimes I root for those guys that I feel like didn't get dealt the best hand. So I'm not rooting for him to, come and beat Chicago every time he comes in here. No. Obviously, I'm a Bears fan, but it was just kind of funny to me that they won like 41-15, and what he was 20 for 28 for like 220 yards. I'm just like, okay, yeah, it makes sense. But like you said, vanilla defense, I think like third and fourth string guys out there, a lot of guys that probably didn't even make the team. But good for him. So back to the Bears. Let's talk about the 53-man roster. So it is getting down to it. I think the last I was looking, so like before we were about to start, there are like 5 roster spots the Bears have left to cut. Some names that have been let go so far: Riley Ridley, Daz Newsome, my favorite name in the NFL, Arlington Hambright. It's so sad to see him go. Josh Woods, a guy that played last year for the Bears at linebacker. Desmond Truffant, somebody that was expected to play opposite Jalen Johnson this year and kind of gives a veteran presence to this secondary. Thomas Graham Jr., the 6th-round pick out of Oregon. Artavis Pierce, Ryan Nall, a couple running backs there. Not upset about the Ryan Nall thing. Don't know about you. Were there any guys that got cut that you were kind of surprised to see go?
Honestly, Riley Ridley, because I think I figured they, traded Anthony Miller, and then I didn't even realize Javon Wims got cut last week. I wasn't paying attention. Maybe I just don't pay attention to anything involving Javon Wims. I'm like, oh wait, he was cut? Oh, no way. Because I haven't even seen him at all, so I haven't been thinking about him. So I was thinking, like, they already got rid of those 2. I was like, well, they got to at least keep one of them, because it's like we need some people there. And I thought the last preseason game, he made a nice play where he, fought for some extra yards. And I was like, oh, okay, this is a little something I saw from him. I thought maybe this will, keep him on the team or something, because he was making some plays. And he had a little bit of a connection with Justin. So I was a little surprised by that, because it seems like we're just like getting rid of all our wide receivers. I'm like, we got to keep somebody.
Yeah, right.
But like the whole thing, and also Desmond Truffant, I thought we signed him to be the other starting cornerback, and then all of a sudden he's not even out. I didn't see him with Jalen Johnson or anything.
Right.
I don't
so he signs a 1 year, $1 million deal early this offseason, comes over from Atlanta. I think on August 13th, his father passed away. So he left the team on August 15th. And has not returned yet, has been away, which absolutely, if you need time to grieve, like, go ahead. There's no issues here at all. But
I should know what's going on with him.
Right. The consensus was before he left, he wasn't proving a lot though. Yeah. Because we have a lot of that's something we'll get into here in a couple minutes, is the secondary it's Jalen Johnson, it's Eddie Jackson, and it's a lot of dudes that have a lot of shit to prove, that are young and hungry. They released Kyle Fuller in the offseason. He ends up reuniting with Vic Fangio in Denver. So let's talk about the secondary a little bit. So Jalen Johnson obviously had that insane rookie year out of Utah last year. And then, Eddie Jackson is looking to get back to his ball hawking ways, his pick 6 ways. He had a couple of those called back last year. I know he's hungry for those. Changed his number back to 4 for his old college number. That's going to throw me off all year, by the way, is all these dudes wearing these random numbers. So what do you think about the secondary? Like I said, it's like Jalen Johnson, it's Eddie Jackson, it's safety. You have Kindle Vildor. I think Duke Shelley is still on the roster. Trey Roberson, shout out Illinois State. Yeah. What do you think? Do you think we're in trouble in the secondary?
Kind of, because Eddie Jackson, he fell off a little bit I don't know. It doesn't add up ever since he got paid. He hasn't been the same. And I'm not trying to make that theory, but you see all the times where it seems like he's letting up a little bit, not tackling guys, missing a lot of tackles. So that's my issue with him. It just seems like he hasn't been the same player, since the first couple of seasons. And so I don't know what we're going to get from him. And now that we're looking at the situation, it's like, man, couldn't we have sacrificed somebody else besides Kyle Fuller? Why did he have to be the cap casualty? Because this is a major hole in the secondary now. And the great thing about him was he was just one of those guys who could cover the top receivers and shut them down. And Jalen Johnson was kind of doing the same thing. And it kind of just, Jalen Johnson could be his little sidekick. And, oh, jeez. Someone's trying to call me. But yeah, so it's just, and then Jalen, I don't know if he can take the next step to be that number one cornerback we're going to need him to be. I think he showed a lot of promise, but I just think, Tayshaun Gibson, I'm glad they re-signed him so we have some stability in the safety position with both the guys playing together another year. So I was happy about that, but there's some question marks for the cornerback position. What, they're going to have Kendall Vilder be the other starting corner? I mean, receivers are going to look at him and be like, oh, I'm going to have a good day.
I mean, it's just a bunch of guys with a lot to prove, just young guys. And I would say, if we're ranking the toughest positions to play in the NFL, I mean, quarterback, I'd say anywhere on the O-line, and I'd say corner, quarterback, O-line. Those are the top three. I think quarterback's obviously the toughest, but I mean, the quarterback has to be the best athlete on the field. So I'm not trying to question these dudes' athleticism, but if you have no experience in the NFL against the other top athletes that you're trying to line up against, it could be for a long day. At that end, the new defensive coordinator, Sean Desai, I just think he's got his work cut out for him. If we move on to another part of the defense, let's talk about the D-line. So things I love, Khalil Mack, Eddie Goldman back, Akeem Hicks. Things I don't love, Robert Quinn, end of list. So we paid him a lot of money coming over from the Cowboys, and I mean, rightfully so. He had an 11.5 sack year with Dallas 2 years ago. Comes over last year. What do you have? 2? Maybe. It was just, he was, he absolutely non-existent on the line. He was supposed to be the guy opposite Mac that's supposed to bring this pressure, supposed to be somebody else you're supposed to be scared of, right? What does he need to prove this year for the Bears? How much does he need to step up?
He needs to step up majorly. I honestly thought he should have been cut this offseason because he was such a disappointment. And I'm not a fan of the injury excuses. If you're out there, you're playing, no excuse. If you were really hurt, you wouldn't be playing. So I don't want to hear that excuse. And he really needs to get back to that old form where he's getting 10 plus sacks. That's what we signed him to be. Because the reason why we let Leonard Floyd go, and of course, as soon as Leonard Floyd goes to another team, he starts doing well. And then we let him go and sign Robert Quinn because we needed somebody opposite Khalil Mack who could take some blockers off him so he could, because Khalil Mack is going to get 3 guys on him because there's no other consistent pass rusher. So we need him to be that consistent pass rusher. If not, I think Travis Gibson stepped up, especially in this last preseason game. He could maybe start over him at some point. But I think Robert Quinn, if he doesn't step it up, he might lose his starting spot midseason.
Right. And I mean, that's another position where I guess the Bears don't necessarily have a ton of depth, but there are guys that it's next man up in the NFL, and they're going to have to go somewhere if it doesn't work out. And then this could be a thing where Quinn may just be, hit the prime of his career, the twilight of his career may be over, So we'll see. To end our little defensive chat, we're going to talk linebackers, and then I got a couple more, and we'll close it out. So linebackers, obviously, we got Roquan there. What can you not love about Roquan Smith? Yeah. You have Danny Trevathan, who's, he's been solid for the Bears, but he's getting up there in age. He may be a little step slower. A guy that impressed and a guy that's made the team is veteran Alec Ogletree, who may be potentially challenging Trevathan for that second inside linebacker spot. What do you think about the linebacker room? Are we going to see Trevathan moving out wide to cover more Packers receivers this year?
Pagano, this is why you like, okay, Pagano retired, quote unquote retired. They told him you need to go.
Yeah.
But Danny, I think, sure, he's lost a couple steps, but I think what he brings to the table is kind of his intelligence, and he's kind of like quarterback of the defense. And I think that's why they still keep him on the team, because he is a really smart player. I mean, you saw in the preseason game where he was out there, where he pretty much read Matt Barkley, that when he got that interception, he read that whole play. He was like calling out their plays like beforehand. Like, he's a super smart player, and I think that's what gives him an edge, where he knows he lost a few steps, but mentally he's really smart, and he's a smart football player. And he's kind of that guy who, when you need a play to be made, just like he did in that moment, they're in the red zone and he got an interception, and he's made a lot of plays like that. So I think that's why they keep him, because he kind of just one of those guys who shows up and makes the clutch play from time to time. So I think because he's still like the leader and quarterback of the defense, I think they'll keep him out there. And if they're not going to have him out there, they'll just let him go at some point. But I think right now they're going to keep him out there. And Roquan can, he has the speed, so he'll handle the speed and hopefully cover like running backs, oh gosh. Khalil Mack shouldn't be covering running backs either. It should be Roquan Smith should be chasing Alvin Kamara, nobody else, or whatever speedy running back they're facing. And
I mean, like, Roquan should be the only linebacker they have lining up out wide, and then you need to spy the other ones with a safety, or we have just put five cornerbacks on the field. God damn it.
Well, I think in general, the defense is going to look better, because since Desai's going to probably bring the Fangio style defense back. So maybe it's just these players they were playing in a defense that wasn't suited for them. So maybe everybody will look a little bit better this year, hopefully.
How much do you think Desai has to prove as a defensive coordinator in his first year?
I feel like because, he's kind of homegrown, he's worked his way up and he got promoted within, the Chicago Bears. And I'm hopeful that, he learned a lot under Vic Fangio. And I do like the mentality he's already bringing about. It's a stupid gimmick, but the turnover bucket that they have, I think it's nice because this team struggled so much the past couple of years getting takeaways, and now they added this stupid gimmick, but it's working for these players. They're getting takeaways left and right. So I'm like, if he can bring that aspect back to the defense, I'm all good.
Yeah. So do you think the defense will have to be the focal point of this team, or let's say the best part of this team, for the Bears to like be successful this season?
I mean, they've been carrying this team for, ever since Nagy got here. You could argue that, and the reason why they were making the playoffs. So I think if Andy Dalton is quarterback, defense has got to lead. But I think eventually you put Justin Fields in there, that offense has got to step up. I don't think the offense is going to step up with Andy Dalton. That's the thing. So the defense is going to have to carry them. But I think if you put in Justin Fields, I think the offense might start to carry the team a little bit. And I think that's the only way this team is going to take the next step, is if the offense finally takes pressure off the defense, so they're not always on the field, and that affects their game as well. So it's just, I wish Justin Fields was starting, but unfortunately he's not. So I think it's going to be a little bit hard these first couple weeks with Andy Dalton at quarterback and this defense trying to stay energized.
Right. I mean, that's my next question, is like, how much longer can these guys on the defense that have been there for, the past 3-4 years be like, fuck, like, we got to go out there and be the spark, like, we have to go out there and make a play, or we feel like we're going to lose, or these defensive guys, like, I just don't know how much they can be like, we have to go out there and be absolutely perfect or we're going to lose. Like, so let's talk about one of the other coaches, Matt Nagy. So you've been pro Matt Nagy in the past, at least when we've talked. Yeah. There's been a lot of talk about him this offseason, what he should do, what he's not doing, especially at the quarterback position. What does he have to do this year to get some of these Bears fans, some of this media, like, what does he have to do to get everybody off his back? Is it just simply win?
Win, but I think it's got to be, the offense has got to be way better. The excuse we've been, we can say is like, oh, it's because of Mitchell. But now it's like we got different quarterbacks. Even Andy Dalton's an upgrade over Mitchell. So it's going to be about him taking the offense. That's my opinion, at least. It's going to be about the offense just taking it to the next level in terms of not constantly getting 3 and outs. They got to score more touchdowns. And I think that's what I'm saying. Justin Fields will make Matt Nagy look better. I think that's a good marriage between those two because Justin Fields works well in his style of offense. And I do think Nagy was given a poor hand with Mitchell. He didn't draft Mitchell. He wasn't there in that draft room. So he was kind of inherited him. And so he had to deal with him. And I think, these past couple of years, he had to completely dumb down his offense and simplify it to make it work for Mitchell, which doesn't work long term. So I think, these quarterbacks are way smarter, so they'll be able to take on a little bit more. And so it's just going to be about scoring points and everything like that. And I mean, Matt Nagy, in general, I do like him as a head coach. I have my criticisms when it comes to play calling sometimes, but I don't knock him down as much as others do. I do think he was just given a bad situation with I think a quarterback can make or break a coach. So it's going to be really about how these quarterbacks are doing. It's going to depend how he's going to do as an offensive play caller.
I think, that is true. Quarterback can make or break a coach, but I think it's a two-way street. I think a coach can make or break a quarterback. And I think what kind of happened with Mitch and Matt, which you alluded to, is, he felt like he had to dumb everything down. And Mitch was not the quarterback that I don't want to say signed up for because he took the job when Trubisky was on the roster. But you were right. He was not in the draft room. He did not have a say in adding Trubisky. And I thought it was interesting. Trubisky was on Pardon My Take, I think, a week or two ago. And he said he didn't even know the Bears were going to draft him. He said he was blindsided by it. He had one secret meeting with Chicago during the draft process, and that was it. So that's very, very interesting. So that the Trubisky era is over, but it's like it's just not something the Bears fans are going to forget for a while. It's going to be very interesting to see how he handles Fields. Do you think the whole saga with Trubisky has something to do with him being extra cautious, it seems, with Justin Fields?
I think Matt Nagy's hanging the fact he thinks Justin Fields is kind of like Patrick Mahomes. He's thinking about his old Kansas City days.
Right,
but Patrick Mahomes a year.
I hate that comparison. I hate that comparison.
I hate it too. But I think he's so stubborn about, it worked for Kansas City. Andy Dalton's not Alex Smith. Alex Smith is a way better quarterback. And so they had the privilege to have Patrick Mahomes sit for a year because they had Alex Smith was doing really well in that offense at that point. He was having some of his best years.
Facts.
So it's like, it's not the same situation. That's why I think there's no way Justin Fields is going to sit out the whole year. He's going to, like I said, week 3 tops, because I think, it's going to get old real fast with Andy Dalton because he's already shown in preseason it's like 3 and out. The same old offense we've been running these past few years. And I don't think Nagy I don't think he's going to he says he's going to do what's best for the Bears. If your quarterback, Andy Dalton, continues to get 3 and outs, the best decision would be to put Justin Fields out there. So I think he wants to not ruin Justin Fields. So he's still kind of being a little bit conservative, but I don't think he's thinking about Mitchell at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. All right. I think that was a good answer. That was a very good answer. So one thing you brought up earlier with Nagy, you don't love his play calling. Do you think he should give up the play calling duties to Bill Lazor, the offensive coordinator?
No, because I want to see what he does with Justin Fields as a play caller. I won't give up on him as a play caller until I see him with a really good quarterback who he can actually open up the playbook for. I do think it's hard for me to, critique him as a play caller because what quarterback he's dealing with, a quarterback who never really developed, and they had to really run a simple offense with Mitchell. So until I see him do the same stuff with a Justin Fields and completely just make bad decisions as a play caller, then I'll be like, okay, give it up. But I'm holding out hope that it was just the quarterback he's dealing with. And once he gets a guy like Justin Fields out there, he'll look better as a play caller. And so I'm kind of waiting and seeing until I see that before I make a determination if he should give up play calling.
Okay. All right. So would you say he's on the hot seat? Like if the Bears are not successful this year, do you think he has one more year in him in Chicago because of the whole Fields thing? Like how long can he dangle this shiny object of Justin Fields at us, like in our face before it's like, okay, now we have to see it, you know?
I think he's on the hot seat. So I think that's why he's going to want to play Justin Fields, because he's got to. I don't know, because I know the Bears organization as well, and it has to be pretty rough. And because he's taken them to the playoffs his first 2 out of 3 seasons,
Yeah.
and you know how the Bears are pretty conservative in their approach. So I still think he could, if they're competitive and they're still like, okay, let's get another year with Justin Fields, I think they'll give it to him. But if they really are terrible, then he would have to be completely, like, absolutely terrible. It'd have to be like a Mark Trestman type season where it's just like awful from start to finish. I think they're gonna. I don't know. I just don't think they're gonna. If they didn't let him go this offseason, they allowed them to draft another quarterback. I doubt they're gonna just drop him after the season.
Yeah, that's a good point. I just don't know. Like this is one of the year. Obviously, you can relate to this. Like, every year Bears off season, we have expectations, right? Like, oh, I think their ceiling is this, their floor is probably this. I've got no fucking idea what they're gonna do this year, Katelynne. Like I am like so all over the place. I don't think, like I mentioned earlier, I don't think they're gonna win the Super Bowl or anything like that. I think, if everything goes perfectly, we're looking at like 9 or 10 win season, which that saves Matt Nagy's job for sure.
Yeah.
Right. So in your opinion, like what are your expectations for this year? You can give me realistic expectations, and then in your heart of hearts, like we were talking about earlier, like what you see for this team.
So I'm one of those fans where I'm like, oh, we're winning the Super Bowl every year. Like it's not realistic, but I'm still gonna think it. And because I can't root for my team to be terrible.
Right. And I don't want you to think I'm rooting for them to be terrible. I'm just trying to be like, I'm trying not to fucking like disappoint myself and make myself into a deep depression every Sunday afternoon. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I think they're still gonna, if they were making the playoffs with Mitchell, and I just think they could still be a playoff team this year, because ever since they added that other spot, the wild card spot, it gives another opportunity. And the Packers are a big question mark because the whole Aaron Rodgers saga, which I think he used this whole offseason just so everybody could talk about him. He was never going to leave. So Go off. Rodgers is like the biggest narcissist there is. But so he's our only competition right now, the Packers. The Vikings, their quarterback is awful as a person and a player, but in the Lions.
He's just trying to get all the facts, Katelynne, okay?
Him and Carson Wentz can just like retire already.
I saw a great Carson Wentz tweet today. Just to interrupt you real quick. It says Carson Wentz that guy that walks out of his house onto the sidewalk and immediately gets hit by a car that runs through a puddle or something.
Oh my gosh.
Go on though. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, and then the Lions, Jared Goff is a step down from Matthew Stafford. So you think like the division, it's gonna be pretty easy, and we can always steal a game against the Packers. So I'm looking at the division like okay, we have a chance. And then the NFC, I still think it's kind of, the NFC West is always like NFC East, the NFC least. That division sucks, and then. There's no Drew Brees, so that takes the Saints, I think, off the table. So I think there's going to be some spots open for the Bears to creep in, and who knows, like what goes on with the Packers. Sometimes after Aaron Rodgers has like an MVP season, they kind of disappoint the next year, or man. I could do a whole hour talking about how much I dislike Aaron Rodgers, but
we can do that podcast in the future. You just let me know whenever you would like to let those frustrations out, Katelynne. But I will say the Jeopardy job is technically still open, Aaron. So don't forget about that. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting. So it's hard pressed for me to not say the Packers are the favorite in the division, just coming off the year they had.
Yeah.
Yes, there was all that turmoil. I didn't love fucking Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams putting that last dance shit with Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen
Don't compare yourself to Michael
on Instagram like you guys have won fucking 6 titles. No, you won one Super Bowl
over a decade ago.
Over a decade ago, and you've not done better than the NFC Championship. And I don't want to shit on the Packers because I love shitting on the Packers, but I don't want the backlash.
The only reason they got to the Super Bowl was because Jay Cutler was riding a bicycle on the sideline. We had Caleb Haney out there. That's the only reason they got to the Super Bowl. And yet he thinks he's like the best quarterback ever. It's like, don't compare yourself to Michael Jordan. That's blasphemy.
Yeah, no, I hated I hated that picture. But yeah. So Katelynne, this has been incredible. I always love talking Bears with you. Before we go, give me a Bears grade for the preseason. That can include camp, like this whole drama, the 3 games. Obviously, they end up going 2-1. Can't hate that. And then give me your record prediction for this year.
So I'd say overall, I'm trying to factor in everything. I would give them like a B-. Now, I would give it a higher grade just based off of Justin Fields, but I got to factor in the offensive line struggled in the last 2 games, and the defense didn't seem like they were trying too much. And then Andy Dalton was terrible. They weren't, they didn't score a lot early, and then Justin Fields would come in and like run a great 2-minute offense, and that's how they get a lot of their touchdowns. And so he had his wow moment, so that's why it's a little bit higher, but B- because the struggles on the offensive line and the defense wasn't really doing well either. As terms of their record this year, I do think they're going to be a playoff team. It's all dependent on when Justin Fields comes in, because I think he could lead the team to the playoffs. And so it's hard for me to say a record because I don't want to pick I think they do on paper, they have like one of the toughest schedules, but I think that can completely change depending on how these other teams do this year. Mm-hmm. So I think they could get, if I'm being realistic, I think they could get, 17 games. And so I think they could win 10. I do.
I agree with you.
I think they have it in them. And a lot of these teams that you think are going to be good aren't going to be good. Like, who knows what the Browns are going to be like if maybe it was just a Cinderella year for them. And
a lot of people are high on the Browns this year.
I think that's what happens. They overhype a team, and then look what happens. They disappoint. So we'll see about the Browns.
We'll see.
But I don't know. I think they have it in them to win 10 games at least. I think that's possible. I think they're going to be competitive, because of their defense. And I think their defense is going to be better in general with Desai. And I think the quarterback position got upgraded either way. So I think, Justin Fields, if he's ready sooner rather than later, I think he could bring a lot of wins to this team. So that's where I'm at.
I'm not going to disagree with you on the 10 wins. I did a guest appearance on my buddy's podcast, The 3-Man Weave. I think it was last week. And I think I said 9-8. So I'm not going to disagree with 10-7. Obviously, I want him to go fucking 17-0. But
right.
we got to be as realistic as possible on here. But Katelynne, I love your optimism about the Bears. It makes me feel good. I love your takes. I love everything about it. Tell us one more time before we get out. Actually, wait. This is kind of relevant. It's not Bears, but Cam Newton cut by the Patriots today. Mac Jones is going to be their day 1 starter. Bill Belichick can do it. What are you doing, Matt Nagy? I'm not saying cut Andy Dalton, but name Justin the starter. Come on.
Seriously, Bill Belichick, who's like Mr. like, I don't want to tell anybody my secrets. And then he's already like given Mac Jones a job well in advance. So it's like, Nagy, come on. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we say that now and then watch him trot Brian Hoyer out there week 1. That would be like the most Bill Belichick thing of all time. Let's close this up though. Tell us one more time where we can find the podcast, where anything you want to promote, anything you want to plug, the new schedule, everything. Tell us, Katelynne.
Sure. So the podcast is being a little bit upgraded. The regular season picking up, coming shortly. So I'm going to be dropping 2 episodes per week. If the game is on Sunday, the previews will be the Friday before, and then the recaps will always be on the Tuesday after the game. And you can find that on iTunes, the Podbean app, or Spotify. And yeah, twice a week I'll be dropping episodes, and you can follow the podcast on Twitter at Bear Down Girl Pod. And then my personal Twitter, where you can see my live tweets during games, and those can be super entertaining because I get a little feisty. It's going to be my name at Katelynne Lener. That's spelled KATELYNNELENER. Follow me there. You'll see all the hot takes. Don't worry.
Awesome. Well, Katelynne, I'm sure we will be in constant communication during this Bears season. I will be definitely messaging you anytime they do something that pisses me off. Being like, did you just fucking see that shit?
Yeah.
I love following your tweets every Sunday or Thursday or Monday, whenever they're playing. Always makes me laugh. Always makes me smile. Thank you so much for doing this. So happy to have you back on the show. And then we'll have to have you back on, hopefully, week 3. When Justin Fields is named the starter of the Chicago Bears. Yeah. So whenever that happens, we'll have to do a midseason update. Go Bears, bear down. This has been the Bear Party, the Brew Party, episode 73, featuring Katelynne Lener from the Bear Down Girl podcast. Make sure you go ahead and subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/the Brew Party. Hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications so you know whenever we post a new video or whenever we go live. We will have Maloney's Money Line, our weekly gambling segment, coming back week 1 of NFL football. So you get to hear me and Ryan spit out our terrible picks. You can follow us. You can fade us, whatever. Find this podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever your podcast, or go to www.thebrewparty.com. You have all of our social media links, links to listen, links to support the show. You can go to Twitter. We are at The Brew Party. We are at The Brew Party on Instagram. We are at The Brew Party Podcast on Facebook. Thank you once again to Katelynne. Thank you to everybody for listening, watching, however you're consuming this content. Go Bears, 17-0, Super Bowl bound. You heard it here first. Yeah. I will say this, Justin Fields, NFL MVP 2022. Come on. Katelynne likes that one. All right. This has been the Brew Party Podcast. Thank you all for being here.